Welcome to SPAN. My name is Mark Davis. I am honored to be this year's president of SPAN, the Seattle Philanthropic Advisor Network, and I work at D.A. Davidson Trust Company. Today we're very fortunate to have 36 people who have not been to SPAN. So if you've not been to SPAN, if you could be kind enough to stand up and we can recognize you. Please stand if you haven't been to SPAN. And we very much hope to see you here on June 15th for Steve and Patty Fleischman. The sequence today, for those of you that have not been to SPAN, is we actually serve lunch after the conversation. So enjoy your salad and rolls, and then as the conversation wraps up, we serve lunch and we have a table talk. And at each table, there's a table captain. So we want to be sure that there's a captain at each table. So if you are a captain at your table, please raise your hand so we can be sure we have all the tables covered. Once again, Terry Dam did a great job. Nice job, Terry. Good. So take the lead from the captains, okay, because they know what they're doing. Okay, we're still on the agenda here. Without our sponsors at SPAN, we would probably never have been able to do SPAN and certainly wouldn't be having this luncheon today. And fortunately this year we have two new sponsors of SPAN. Is Teresa Massengill here? Teresa, could you stand up? And also Bill Zook, could you stand up? Two new sponsors of SPAN, Bloodworks Northwest and Evergreen Plan Giving. And I'd say our older sponsors, or ones that have been around for more than a year, some for 10 years, are Clark Nuber CPAs, and it's amazing that we have Clark Nuber people here on tax day, but we have loyal Clark Nuber people that have been with us since the beginning. D.A. Davidson Trust Company, Del Prado Philanthropy, Filament Advisors, Goldman Sachs, Helsel Fetterman, Morgan Stanley, Pacific Continental Group, Pratt Legacy Advisors, the Private Client Group at U.S. Bank, Wellspring Group, and Whittier Trust. Please give our sponsors a big round of applause. So we're very fortunate today to have one of the leading philanthropists in Seattle and community builders, John Meisenbach. And he's here today with his daughter, Michele Huff, and who will lead the discussion is our co-founder of SPAN and CEO of Innovate, Joe Ottinger. So please come to the stage, and we're just so fortunate to have this conversation today.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here today. Someone came up from California, and that would be Michele, and brought the sun, so thank you. Not that it hasn't been a little wet this winter. Let me start by saying it's been really fun preparing for this day with John and Michele, particularly because as I'm talking to them, you know, there's so much mutual admiration, so much respect and love that it was just, you know, a pleasure. And we could talk about parenting in this or any other number of things, but so just quick intro. So John currently serves as the president and CEO of MCM, a financial services company founded in 1962. His success can be attributed to his expertise, work ethic, and the attention his clients have enjoyed over his 55-year career. Additionally, he serves or has served on the boards of Costco, M Financial Holdings, M Financial Group, Expeditors International, Seattle University, and Children's Hospital. He's also active in numerous industry and civic organizations, including the United Way of King County, Global Partnerships, Medical Teams International, and Zion Prep Academy. He's recognized for his leadership and service to our community, and before that, he spent 2 years in the Navy submarine service before graduating from Seattle U. And that's just a really abbreviated story of his background. And Michele is John's daughter, and when I asked John about the programs he's most proud of, he talked glowingly about the mentorship program that Michele started at Hamilton Elementary School in Marin County. And at Hamilton, over 70% of the students live in poverty. Many drop out of school, and the mentorship program was designed to give these students hope and knowledge that would help them get through high school and prepare for college. And the program has trained over 50 mentors and teachers who are now training others, and they conduct over 90 mentorship meetings per week. So again, a quick welcome for John and Michele. My biggest task will be keeping on track. So we'll just start with a little background, and John, we'll start with you. Tell us a little about your early years. So growing up in Buckley, Washington, your parents, and what did you learn from them that shaped you and your career?
My parents, my mom and dad, were both from Montana. Very tough time during the Depression. They were in families where kids only went to school until about the 6th grade, and then they went to work. And my dad went in the Army in World War II and got out of the Army and came to Buckley, Washington, which is a thriving community up by Mount Rainier. I was one of the star athletes there. We had 50 kids in our class. And so when I was a kid, I mean, it was always work, you know, working on they had a little variety store, and then I worked on farms and milked cows and cleaned barns and worked at the pickle factory at Farman's Pickle and Enumclaw. And so, but I always wanted to get to Seattle, to be in the big city. I remember one time we went to Tacoma, and I was just overjoyed with that. I just thought, God, that was such a great city. And so but I think the one thing I did learn, once somebody asked me one day, I said, so what would you credit any success you've had to? And I said 2 things. One is, I think my parents gave me a real strong work ethic, and the other is a lot of real great luck. And I mean, I think luck has had a big part of my life, and I could go on and tell you examples of that. But so I think that's had something to do. My mom was as gentle and kind as anybody you'd meet. I mean, Michele and her 2 brothers, we used to come in the variety store that they had there, and they was, you know, she was a saint. Unfortunately, she had 1 son and didn't want to do that again, and 1 child and didn't want to do that again. And so I was that child. But it was great. I mean, I think we learned a lot, and we lived on top of the variety store for, I guess it was 30-some years, and she eventually retired and passed away about 10 years ago.
Yeah. And Michele, I'm going to ask you the same question. You know, what was it like growing up with John as a father, and what are the values you received from him?
I thought a lot about that question, and I think the strongest value that I inherited from my dad was work ethic. I think growing up, he really encouraged us to always do our best. I was thinking about this as I was traveling up to Seattle yesterday, thinking, I'm probably going to have to really pull it together and get up at 5 in the morning and go work out with a trainer. Sure enough, this morning we were up at 5:15 and working out with the trainer at 6 a.m. I'm like, this is why he is who he is. It wasn't until later in my life that I started realizing how much philanthropy that him and Jenny were involved in. And it really was eye-opening to me. when they were involved with Zion. In fact, I've met one of my best buddies when one time visiting Zion, and Seattle U, and then College for Success. These types of things were very interesting to me. I remember Ginny telling me about the trips to Oaxaca with Northwest Medical, where she was pouring concrete so that families that didn't have homes could at least live on a concrete slab instead of the dirt, because they found that it was a lot healthier to have at least a concrete pad. And I was so impressed that she was willing to do such hands-on work. And when she and Patty and the other women started Stolen Youth, I sat in that first lunch, I can remember it today, thinking, I just want to be her. And she was so inspiring to me. And I talked to her a lot about the kids, because my kids have grown up in a very privileged environment thanks to their grandparents. They've attended private schools, and I did not want them to be entitled. I was so worried that they wouldn't be grateful. I've been grateful for my life for as long as I can remember, and I just really did not want them to be entitled children. And so I talked to Ginny a lot about this, and I, from my dad and her doing all this work, I thought, you know what, I need to expose them more to charity and poverty, to be honest with you. And so I took them, following Ginny's lead, I took them down to Vicente Guerrero, Mexico, where we worked in an orphanage and fell in love with the family down there, and kept coming back year after year, building homes. And it really changed the drive of our family, from always just achievement to achievement so that we can do something with our life. And that's made a huge shift I've seen in our family.
And it led you to start a mentorship program. Maybe just continue on and talk about the mentorship program, how you got it started, why you started it, and what it does.
Okay. Throwing me a curveball there, changing the questions up. But
Oh, yeah. More to come.
So fast forward.
I thought this was supposed to be all about me.
We're going to get there.
You dragged me up here. Okay. So I've been parenting for 25 years. My oldest is 25, and I tell people I'm on the back end of parenting, because in 3 years my youngest will leave for college. Now my youngest has a real problem with this, because she said, you're in it with me right now. Why are you at the end? And but anyways, I am. And I was looking for something to do with my emerging free time, and so I got involved with a school in our community. We live in a community called Marin County, and it's kind of a wealthy community, and I didn't really know that there were schools that were in such poverty. And this particular school, about 70% of the school is in poverty. We have maybe 50 homeless families in transitional homes. We have parents that are in prison, drug dealers, drug addicts, prostitutes. I mean, it's a real interesting place for the kids. They have a lot of chaos in their life, and they often they do well at the school because they've created this environment where there's a lot of support for them. They have counselors, they have food, they have clothing, so they've created a kind of a community. The principal's really into taking the shame out of poverty. So that's all great, but when they leave this school, they were finding that the kids were dropping out of high school. In fact, most of them drop out of high school for one reason or another. And a lot of people tell me, wow, well, it's so great that this school is in the midst of a wealthy community. And I'm like, well, I guess it's better than being in downtown Oakland or maybe downtown Richmond, but it really comes with its own problems, and that is that these kids from this school go then to the neighborhood high school, which is mostly privileged kids, and then these kids. And these kids haven't had club soccer teams and academic tutoring and athletic tutors, to be honest with you, since they were little. And so we needed to find a way to bridge that gap from leaving in 8th grade through college, because these kids weren't even making it through high school. And so the principal really wanted to start a mentor program, and so that's what we did. We recruited caring adults, men and women from the community that come alongside these kids, and they meet for at least an hour a week, sometimes more. A lot of the mentors have off-campus privileges, and so they take the kids home for the weekend or what have you. And it's really making a difference. It's it's going to be a long haul before we really see the significant strides these kids might make. We're just having our first class now, graduating into high school. So we have 8 kids going to high school, so we'll see how that goes. But it's really brought out for me a lot of awareness in the inequity that these kids have compared to other children. And one of the things, and Patty and I were just talking about it, is these kids don't have very high expectations for their life. They don't have their comfort zone isn't very high. Where's Jack? Yeah. So they often don't aspire to achieve things. They often don't think that education is valuable because they're going to be gardeners or maids or whatever. And not to say that that's a bad thing. It's just that they're not thinking they have a lot of options. And so my dad, always interested in whatever I'm doing and always supportive, says, is there anything that I can do to help? Well, my daughter and I had gone through Pacific Institute right after she finished college, and it rocked my world in terms of how I was thinking and how I was perceiving things that I was doing and what I actually maybe could achieve. And I said, it would be amazing if we could somehow bring Pacific Institute to Hamilton School. And so thanks to my dad and Pacific Institute, and we were able to do that, and we trained the mentors, we trained a lot of the teachers, and we trained the teachers to teach the other teachers, and now the teachers are training them monthly. And we're really seeing a huge difference. In fact, I have 2 mentees myself, and I was talking to my mentee the other day, and I was telling him about Pacific Institute and some of the things that I had learned there, and he's like, wow, I think you went to the same class that my teacher went to. I'm like, yes.
Let me stop you there,
yeah.
just because I want to talk to John about kind of the story of building MCM and the role Pacific Institute played for you as well.
Sure. Tell them how many mentors you have.
We have over 90 now. So this is our 3rd school year, and so it's been really fun. So we're bursting at the seams in our mentor center, because on any given day we'll have 30, maybe 20 to 30 mentors come in and meet with their kids. So it's super great.
It's amazing to see it. So the question was what now?
So just a little about, you came from, a small town,
right,
built MCM. So just kind of, how did you do it, and what role did Pacific Institute?
When I was a kid, I was always arguing with the teachers, and so everybody said you should be a lawyer, and I've got to the point where I really believe that's what I wanted to do, was be a lawyer. So I was in the Navy for a couple of years, and then I applied to Seattle University, barely got in, and at the school I majored in law, or actually it was philosophy and political science in order to go to law school. So when I got out of school, I applied to the University of Washington. At that same time, I was really broke. I don't mean broke, I mean really broke, and to the point where I really didn't know if I could really do it, but that's what I thought I should do, is go to this law school, because I've been thinking about it forever, since I was a little kid. So I was accepted into law school, and at the same time, I worked at a couple jobs, and I was a company, for some of you will remember, the name was Electrocraft. It was on 6th and Union, and it was a store that sold music systems, a lot of office equipment like dictation machines and copy machines and things like that. Anyhow, I was working there, and they offered me a job at $800 a month, and as a sales manager, and an override on the salespeople there. And I was, just 20. I think I was 22 years old by then, 24. And then I went to, and I talked to Mass Mutual, which a few people here from Mass Mutual, and they offered me $400 a month for 6 months. Well, you didn't need to be a Rhodes Scholar to figure out which was that deal, you know. So I'm managing an apartment house for a man by the name of Orville Cohen, which some of you probably remember, and actually 5 apartment houses at the time, and so supervising 4 and living and managing 1. And so I said to him, you know, I said, this is pretty obvious, but I just thought I got these 2 jobs. I was kind of pleased that I had a couple of people wanting me to work for them. And what would you do? And he said, John, he says, if you're in the insurance business, aren't you sort of like working for yourself? And I said, yeah, I think so. He says, well, if you're worth $800 a month to somebody, you got to be worth more than that to yourself. So maybe it's not as obvious as, and so I went to $400, and at $400 a month, I was dying. And I was calling on gas station attendants and waitresses for insurance sales. When you can imagine how that went. So it was a tough time. I heard about a company that was a predecessor of the Pacific Institute with the same curriculum, and went to that school, and it had a huge impact on me about things like self-talk and goal setting and a lot of things. And so I went back to the office after a period of time, and I told my it's called general agent in the insurance, but I told my general agent I want to be in management. He said, he started laughing. He says, you haven't gotten sales yet. How can you be in management? So there was a kid where there was a store, there was a flower shop down on 3rd and Pine, and there was this kid that worked in there, and his name was Bill Scarborough, and he was delivering flowers. And I said to him, hey, how would you like to carry a briefcase instead of those flowers? And he said, would they pay me? I mean, exact words. And I said, of course. So anyhow, this kid looked like Paul Newman. He was majoring in psychology and drama. He was unbelievable. And I taught him the sales talk. And he could do it much better than I could. And so he went in to see the general agent guy. His name was Dwight Mason, which some of you may remember. Anyhow, so I went to see Dwight. And I said, Dwight, I want to introduce you to somebody. And he gave him the sales talk. And it was unbelievable. It would make you cry. I mean, this guy was just absolutely incredible. And so when he'd finished, I said, Bill, would you wait outside? And so I said to Dwight, that's my first recruit. And he said, okay. And I hired him. This kid became the rookie of the year for Mass Mutual. And then I was there 3 years, and I went to New England Life as their manager, and we had one of the freshman 5 for the company. So we were off and running. So that's how we got started. Yeah, wasn't all roses.
Well, the aftermath of that is you built a phenomenal, successful company. And when we were talking, you don't think as much about giving back. You think about sharing your success. And a lot of what you do, probably nobody in this room even knows about it. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about kind of sharing your success and some of the ways you're doing that with White River High School and College for Success and other places.
So I think all of us would like to do something for our high schools where we went to school. And when I thought, a lot of times you just do something for the sports team or for one of the students. And I thought it would be interesting to do something for the teachers. And so what we did is, Ginny and I went out and first of all found a student in Ballard that we wanted to help through school. And really, this young lady she was pregnant and she had a baby on the day of graduation, and Ginny just became her surrogate mom, and so it was fabulous. But for the amount of time and effort, it just really helping that that large of a group. It was just one person. So we decided that we would like to maybe get involved with teachers. And so what we did, at Buckley, we decided to have the Teacher of the Year in recognition of my mom, called the Mary Meisenbach Excellence in Teaching Award. And so we set that up, and we would give the winner a $10,000 gift and a beautiful plaque, and also bring him to Seattle for dinner. Well, we did that about 15 years ago, and so now we have, let's see, they usually have a significant other or a spouse. They come to Seattle, and we all have dinner together. And these, I tried to get when it got over 3, I told Jenny, I said, this could get out of hand here. She would have nothing to do with it. She said, so we had 15 people with 30 counting we had to get a bus to bring them to because we didn't want they were drinking. These people were really drinking a lot. So it's been an amazing. I mean, we hear a lot about teachers, but these teachers are they're just unbelievable. So, but what we did is when the school they started bringing students in for us to meet with, students that had financial issues and with their parents weren't doing well, or they just there's a lot of poverty up there in Enumclaw and Buckley, and so we took 2 students a year and gave them a college education through the College Success Foundation. And we were talking the other day when we had a meeting on that. We've got 60 kids that we've given education to, and so we do that every year. We give them 2, and hopefully 2 drop off. And we've only had one student not make it. It's they quit. Which is pretty good. And I think these kids. You just can't believe it. I mean, what they do, how they get by. It's just pathetic. But anyhow, that's pretty much the story.
All right. Yeah. And that's one of many, many stories. And I guess, Michele, I'd ask you, when you see how your father operates in the world, what impact did that have on you?
Well, first of all, I'm so proud, of course. I think the things that he is doing, the theme, we were talking about this today, the theme around how he spends his time and his money is around creating equity for these kids, and that are either in poverty or needing somehow to help to go through college and get that education that came so easily for our kids. And it's very inspiring.
So, John, I'm going to move on. You are one of the most sought-after board members, either for for-profit boards or nonprofit boards, and we've talked a lot about different organizations you've been involved with. And one that you really feel you had a significant impact on and are very proud of is the Zion Prep. So can you tell us your story of how you got involved, and how do you look at your board role?
Let me just make a couple comments here. One is that Eric Anderson, which I think many of you know, has started an organization over the years called the International Chess Foundation. And this is for kids in the 2nd and 3rd grades. And what they do is they give these kids a chessboard and a chess set and teach the teacher how to teach them, they teach the teachers how to explain chess to these kids. So Eric, this is a funny story. So I think you'll laugh at this. So anyhow, so he he kept trying to get me to join the board, and I said, Eric, I don't want, I'm just too exposed. And that happened for 3 years. The 4th year, I finally said, okay, I'll do it. Tell me what do I need to do? He said, well, first you need to write me a check for $25,000. I said, you got to be kidding. He says, when you're a board member, they expect you to, participate in meetings, and they expect you to make a contribution. We're going to do it a little differently. We're going to get the contribution before we expect it. So, what would you look like if you said no at that point, right? So I said, okay. So I wrote him this check. A year goes by, and I get a bill in the mail. And I called Eric, and I said, Eric, your accounting system is all screwed up. They sent me another bill for $25,000. John, it's an annual payment. He has 170,000 kids in this chess foundation, 170,000. And he has, I think, 4 staff people. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I really hand it to him. It's an amazing thing. So anyway, I wanted to mention that because I think it's not many people know about it, but it's just phenomenal. Zion Prep. Doug Wheeler, who was a president and principal at Zion Prep, was introduced to me by Ruth Walsh, who was the Cairo's one of their announcers. And she called up one day and asked me if I could help Doug because they were trying to get the school, this building, away from the state. The state had it, and they wanted to move their kids there because they were having to leave St. Mary's, which is a building up on Capitol Hill. And so I talked to as many people as I could, and there was no hope. So I'm meeting with Doug and his wife and at the Fairmont Hotel for breakfast. And tell him I just don't think I can do it. I said, but I think what you need a foundation. You need somebody to help you raise some money. They were taking money out of the pop machine to pay for books. So I said, you need somebody to raise, you need a group. You need something like Children's has. You need a foundation. Doug said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, John, we don't want a bunch of white guys running this company. And I loved it because, he was right on, and I said, listen, I understand totally. I said, but if you need some help, if I can be of any help in the future, call me. And 2 years later, he called me. He said, we got to do something. And so I wrote down the names. I couldn't do this today, but that time it really was. We got the presidents or CEOs of Seafirst, Costco, Phil Smart, Saltchuk, Weyerhaeuser, Nordstrom, Starbucks, and the Fleischmann family to help us to raise money to get this school. And so, what a board, huh? What a board. I'd love to have that board today. These guys won't even talk to me anymore. So what happened was we finally got, this is an amazing story, we got Seattle First, Bob Craves, I don't know if you remember Bob Craves with Costco. We got Seattle First to loan us $2.5 million to buy the school, and we got Costco to guarantee the loan. Unbelievable. Never happened today in a million years just because of all the regs and all the stuff. So anyhow, that's what got. Then we kept it. Patty Fleischmann became the coach for these kids in terms of psychological issues, etc. She worked on the staff, and Steve was out raising money. We just had we started incidentally. I think if we didn't start it, we were one of the few. The breakfast fundraiser. It was Terry Axelrod, and we would have people come in and we would ask for 5 years or 7 years. What was it? 5-year commitment, and we got 5-year commitments from tons and tons of people to get these kids, and it was thousands of kids went through there over the years, and it was eventually just because of a lot of other things just had to say goodnight. But it was a wonderful run, and we're still close to. And I'll tell you one funny story about Doug. Doug is like a bodybuilder. He's husky and strong, and he looks like he works out every day. So we're at Mike Goldfarb's house. I don't know if you remember Mike since passed away, and he lives very close to Bill Gates in Medina, a couple doors down. So we had a meeting there one night. We had a television, and we had about 20 people there. We're trying to raise some money, and we're showing the slides about Seattle, about Zion Prep, and we get done, and I say to Doug, "Hey, Doug, can you help me? Can you help me here a little bit?" And he was helping me, and then he said to me, "Can you help me?" And I said, "Would you carry the TV out to the car?" And I said, "Doug, you could carry me and the TV out to the car." He said, "John, this is Medina. A black man walking down the street carrying a television at 7 o'clock at night just wasn't going to go very well." But so he's always got a kick out of that story, So anyhow, that's
great.
Yeah.
One more question for each of you, because I want to open it up to everybody else. And Michele, we always, because there are advisors in this room, and because this was created for advisors, I think the question is, your father is both your father and he's an advisor. And I guess, what advice did you need? What advice did you get from your father? And where did you use other advisors for help?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you that my dad has a lot of wisdom. I've always taken his guidance very seriously, which is probably why we get along. And sorry. Anyways, was going to say something. Mostly, he's very interested in whatever I'm doing and very supportive and always pushes me to think bigger and gives me the confidence to keep going when things might get a little tough. I know what I was going to say. Sorry. Backtrack a little bit. I was going to tell you that in taking his guidance and being wise, this is how much we listen to him. When I was in high school trying to decide which major I was going to be, I'm like, I don't know, Dad. He's like, well, if I were to do it all over again, I'd become a CPA. And I'm like, oh, he has 2 CPAs for kids. So that's how much we listen to him. Anyways, is that what you wanted? Okay.
Yeah. So John, you have the last say, and then we'll open it up to. So you can answer any question you want, but I'll give you the open-ended one. What have you found most personally rewarding in sharing your success?
Yeah, I think what you do is see the results of it. I mean, Children's Hospital, to see these kids being taken care of, as Zion Prep, kids getting through school and their successes. I mean, I think it's the result of what you've helped create. It's all about, I think the success that these organizations, Make-A-Wishes here, et cetera. I mean, you just Big Brother, Big Sisters. I mean, any of these organizations, I think give you the feeling that you really made a difference, and it's helped these kids survive, and also the adults as well. There's so many people out there that. I heard the other day that somebody said they were having lunch, and this man gave a $100 tip to the waitress. And my buddy said, he asked him, so what are you doing? He says, I've got a lot of money. I could give $100 tips to waitresses all my life and never even done it. But he says, to them, it's a big deal. Getting $100, at any given time for a waitress. He says, I can't tell you how many waitresses and waiters have they just can't thank me enough. And incidentally, he says, I often get a pretty good table too.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say one more thing. When I asked my kids what was most impressive about their grandparents, was that they do things with such humbleness, and they didn't really they don't talk about it. Dad and Jenny would not talk about what they did, and I would find out little things, like Jenny would say, oh, yesterday your dad went out and delivered coats to all the people in Seattle when it was raining, and there's probably still things that I don't know that both of them did. So that was one thing I wanted to share. And then the other thing was that I mentioned that I've been parenting for 25 years, and one of the privileges of being a parent for so long is that sometimes people ask you, well, how do you get kids to read, or how do you get them to be honest, or how do you get them to be charitable? And I always tell them, well, you read, or you be charitable. And I guess I've learned the most from my dad, from watching him live his life so generously and compassionately for other people, as well as Jenny. And so if you want your kids to be grateful and you want them to be charitable, then be that. And likely they will follow.
Again, let's just thank John and Michele. And I think we have a couple of minutes for questions. So who's got a question for John and Michele? Okay, over there.
Hi.
I've got a big voice, but so Michele, on that theme, your children and John, your grandchildren and Jenny's grandchildren, can you talk a little bit about anything specific, a couple of examples of things that you've done as a family together to further instill that sense of philanthropy, and what that's done for you as a family together?
You mean my immediate family and my children? Or with my father?
Your kids.
My kids. Well, I think that most significantly, because of the influence of my dad and Ginny, my kids started their own nonprofit. It's an organization called SurfWorks. It's a nonprofit for low-income kids that have never had a chance to possibly go to the ocean, and they take them to the ocean and they teach them about the environment and teach them how to surf at the same time, and that's been going on for about 5 years now. And my parents have always contributed and encouraged them. In fact, they even came and stayed out at the beach for one summer just so they could be a part of SurfWorks. And so, I think that thread is very important, just knowing that we're all trying to make a difference in the world.
Any other questions?
Anybody want to buy insurance?
There's a question up here.
So, hi, John and Michele. So how does one scale this? How do we get your sentiment and your empathy and your philanthropy? How do we bring that to new generations of people in the city?
You get the easy questions, John.
I think people, I look at Bill Gates and all the things that he's done, from a charitable standpoint, and Warren Buffett and some of these, some of our Howard Schultz in Seattle. I mean, I think, and the example that so many people give in this city and nationally is amazing. And I think to celebrate that and to talk to our kids and our friends and our associates about that, I think a lot of people would like to do more for people, but they just don't know what to do or how to do it. I think most of us, you say probably most of us, if not all of us, have this kindness in our hearts and our souls, and we like to. That makes you feel good to be able to help somebody. And so I think a lot of the reason it's not done, a lot of people don't know where to start, what to do. And I mean, one of the things that helped me was joining a board. I joined Big Brothers Big Sisters when I was a kid. I was 22 years old or something. I just started in business. And, and I remember they said they were going to have an auction, and it was $200. And I said, for the table? No. It was for the, I thought, there's nobody that I know that can write a check for $200. So, and I think it's just in time that, by observing other people and what they do, I think all of you are great ambassadors. Just by being here just says a lot. So I think it's watching what other people, successful people do and how they help, and then I think joining that bandwagon, and then trying to help people, ask people if there's a way they can get involved. We had something on over the holidays were over at during Christmas time, and I mentioned to a couple people, and there was a organization that was a shelter, and we were helping them feed these homeless people. And I just mentioned to two or three, and they all showed up. So I think it's just letting people know what you're doing, and I think a lot of times we don't do that because we don't want to. We're not trying to get attention or get approval. It's just you do it because you enjoy it, and you're sharing your success. We could just like the man giving that $100 to the waitress. So most of us could do that all day long and never miss it. And so I think it's just getting on the team. Yeah.
All right, one last question. Here, can you pass it up?
I have a terrible voice today, John, but I thoroughly enjoyed the fact that I got a phone call from you, and we were working on the Seattle Police Foundation. And here again, it's not little kids, it's Seattle. And I mean, you've done so many things for Seattle, and Seattle U, by the way. What's your favorite? That's done for the city.
What's What's my favorite charity, you mean, or favorite
Yeah, that you've done for the city, because, well, but I tie that to what you just said. You go, you put yourself there, and you ask 3 people to go, and that's how it happens. I think that's a very Seattle thing.
Well, I think if you had one organization that you're really proud of, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I'd have to take 2. I think the College Success Foundation and Children's Hospital would probably be the 2 that would be on my list, because they both. I mean, it's amazing what they both do. I know if you ever, I'm sure most of you, but do you ever go to Children's for a tour? You become a benefactor. Yeah. So I think that's what I would suggest. And the College Success Foundation, they really try to. It's not just for $6,000 they're putting a year. They're putting a student through college, because they were getting all the grants and the loans, and I mean it's just an amazing organization. Yeah. Thank you.
And you ask 3 people to go with you.
That would be good. That's right.
Hey, John and Michele, I just want to thank you for your thoughtfulness.